Hello. Being a prominent Starscream, I feel as though I'm in a position where I can say something that's the truth that people don't want to hear and will actually get angry about, and nothing will happen to me for saying that. They'll pretend like nobody heard it, nobody saw it. Yeah, you keep telling yourselves that. I don't actually believe you. And I'm the number one person you need for to believe your narrative, and I don't. And soon, a lot of other people aren't going to either. Anyway, gonna talk a little bit about Hong Kong. There's a few notable people who talk about it. Most people go with the mainstream narrative, unfortunately, and don't tell the truth because I guess they don't want people, thinking from a logical standpoint. They'd rather keep them in a confused state where they don't know anything. Okay. Mainland China has annexed Hong Kong. The British have said that they will take in 2.5 million Hong Kongers, about that number, by making it easier for them to gain residential status and change a bunch of loopholes, essentially because they're fleeing from the Chinese Communist Party, which they should be trying to do. That would be the rational thing to do, as the Chinese Communist Party is likely to inflict retribution because Hong Kong was wealthier than many parts of China for a great long time. And it's not that Hong Kong was especially very wealthy, it's just the other parts of mainland China were extremely poor. The zombie factories, the ghost towns, all those sort of things, all those horrible things that happen in the mainland Chinese. And what better way of lifting the spirits of those down and out and have nothing, but by condemning somebody else, like the mainland Chinese are going to do to the Hong Kongers. They're going to say, look, they're kowtowing to the West. The West has treated us so shitty over the years, blah, 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 blah. Now we're going to punish them and make their lives worse than yours are now. Somehow it makes them the good guys when really they're just doing bad things to people all over the place. The reality is Hong Kong's got about a population of about 7.5 million. They're not all rich. Not by a long shot. Hong Kong is a tiny, tiny little thing, a little city. And there are a great many people who are extremely poor over there. Who, you would think things couldn't get much worse for them, but actually it's going to. All the kinds of horrible things that are going to happen when the mainland Chinese begin sinking their claws into Hong Kong even deeper than they already were before. And this 2.5 million figure, I mean, I suppose that's good guy the Westerner type of thing to do. But no single nation's taken 2.5 million Hong Kongers. It's not happening. And it most certainly isn't going to be the British. They'll disperse them amongst other countries and things like that. And Canada will be one of them. Even if they take that many, because what they say, them being notorious liars and all that, politics and politicians, they lie, they can't help it. Even if that figure were true, it would be dispersed. Not every single Hong Konger is vacating that city, and there's a reason for it. Because nobody really wants 2.5 million Hong Kongers showing up. that would throw off the equilibrium of the populations that have already existed and are already here. You can't introduce that large a figure into any ecosystem and expect everything to be hunky-dory, because it's not going to happen. And even 2.5 million, that still means that 1 out of 3 people ain't showing up here, which is, for them is very unfortunate. Because a great many horrible things are coming to Hong Kong, and it's more than this new law that they passed. Because people, like I said before, don't understand the psychology and the reasoning and the ideological beliefs of the Chinese Communist Party. And there will be security in the sense that there will be factions within the migrant Hong Kongers that will ensure radical, dare I say, terrorist mainland Chinese forces do not sneak in while these other Hong Kongers are fleeing from the mainland Chinese. They'll have their own internal networks of making sure that doesn't happen, basically to save their own bacon. And unfortunately, it will mean that there will be an influx of more mainland Chinese authorities, gangsters, whatever you want to call them, entering the country as observers. It's like, the buffer state has been removed, and therefore a new buffer state would like the mainland Chinese would like to establish one, and the most likely place would be on the other side of the Pacific, which would happen to be either the San Francisco area or Vancouver Metro. And since San Francisco has a lot more money than Metro Vancouver, it looks as though that we would be getting them. And, for air travel, that totally makes sense. That's a lousy excuse, but I don't like the idea of, mainland Chinese gangsters showing up, because the second they show up, they're not going to be content with showing up. They want more and more and more, which means they will try to use their influence to change laws over here in Canada, and they will apply their ideological beliefs, their cultural beliefs. And a lot of people go, oh, you can't criticize another culture or you're a racist. No, you actually can. As Paul Joseph Watson says sometimes, some cultures are better than others. And, I'm not afraid to say that. How many people do you know say that? How many people do you know have a YouTube channel that has all the things that has on my one? How many people do you know? I bet you don't know anybody. Anybody watching this video, I bet they don't know anybody who has all that. Sure, my videos could be a little bit low budget, but guess what? I speak the truth. I'm woke as fuck. And you know what? I gotta tell you, there's some bullshit in the air, and I don't like it. And, of course, it's a great sad thing that many people's lives over on the other side of the world are going to be severely decreased in quality. However, are we to help turn the tide on that at our own, more than inconvenience, our own massive headache, as well as all the other negative ramifications of what the Chinese Communist Party actually wants? Because they're not some organization you can simply give something to them and they will be content. They are not content. They are still pissed off. They're embarrassed that the British, a couple hundred years ago, embarrassed the fuck out of them. They pulled their pants down right in front of everyone, in front of the world, and everyone laughed at him. And they hate that. They still hate that. And it's like, none of you were alive then. What is it to you? But no, it is part of their nationality and, their country's pride and blah, 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 blah. And the fact that they still are relatively a dirt poor country. I mean, there's some that are super rich over there, but most people are just extremely dirt poor. Hong Kong might actually be considered a province, not a city. I should probably try and think about that a little bit harder, but I guess I don't care. It doesn't really matter. Same difference. Yeah. Like, I remember a few years back in the Richmond area that they were not going to change signs that were written in, what was either Cantonese or Mandarin. I really don't know the difference. And City Council rejected that offer and allowed them to do that without them speaking or writing in English. And a lot of them don't speak English, as a matter of fact. I mean, most Hong Kongers here in the Metro Vancouver area do speak English, or at least try to. But a lot of them don't. And it's a creeping barrage. I mean, when is it going to stop? When it gets to Ontario? When, the people who always win the lottery, because the lottery is always won in Quebec or in Ontario, always won there. And, I might go, well, that's not necessarily true. Maybe 1 out of 20 times is not won there. In one of those two places, either Quebec or Ontario. 1 out of 20 times is not won there. Usually it's won in Quebec or Ontario. Is that when it's going to stop? When Justin Trudeau is going to pull up his stupid color socks and really stand up for this country, after the creeping barrage has gone all the way to Ontario? Is that when he's going to act? Is that when he's going to do something? Because it'll happen if he lets it. And those idiots who were sucking up to him when he first became prime minister, I went, wait and see what he does. I mean, we all hated on Harper, but wait and see what he does. Because politicians lie. They all do. And it doesn't matter how pleasant their demeanor is. If they're a politician, they lie. And when they lie, it's usually bad things that they're lying about. Like instances like this. And all this was all premeditated. They knew all this stuff was going to happen long before. So who knows what other stuff they've been talking about that sounds absolutely insane to the simplistic mind of an average Canadian, which is what they want people to be. They don't want people thinking. Oh, goodness gracious. No, people can't be allowed to think. And anyone who does think, publicly shame him or her. I mean, sometimes that's okay if they have the wrong opinion, but, I believe I don't. I don't want a bunch of mainland Chinese gangsters showing up and observing us and then reporting back to mainland China. I mean, there's a reason iPhones all have cameras on them. So that idiots can go, look at this guy. People like that deserve a smacking. Like, really? I mean, from somebody else, not me. I wouldn't do that. Never. Yeah, I mean, it's an unfortunate truth. When things start to happen, we get the stupid version, and the people who are making the decisions, or supposedly the enlightened ones, feel so much more intelligent when these, focal points of the conversation that they leave out in mainstream media are not actually particularly intelligent, and they're mostly discussing on how it is that they're going to save their own bacon. This means John Horgan. This means Doug Ford. This means Justin Trudeau. This means Donald Trump. This means Boris Johnson. This means whatever the French prime minister is. I forget his name. It's them first, and then the public second. It's like everybody. And they justify it by going, well, if you were in our position, you'd be no different. You would think of yourself first. And it's true. Most people would think of themselves first. Even if they are sanctimonious and go, I'm going to virtual signal the fuck out of this. And, I'll be the Neo from Matrix. I'll sacrifice myself for the better people. Nobody would do that. But the people who are in power are making decisions that affect the quality of life for the average people within the country that they're governing. They're still guilty of mismanagement and poor decision making, and subsequently inadvertently punishing their own population. The Hong Kongers that are going to get left behind, they're not. It's going to be it's going to be sad. It's going to be like kind of like a gulag, prison camp, Auschwitz. Call it what you want. That's basically what it's going to be like eventually in a few years. The Chinese Communist Party would probably try to put on the facade of like, oh, look how successful it is. Oh, look how everything wonderful it is. Like they do with everything. Except that little story would have worked, back in the Mao Zedong era, but it's not actually going to fool anybody now. So maybe they'll dispense with the pleasantry and get right into the nastiness. Who knows? And there are a lot of people who are going to hate on me for exposing this one version of events. We could always listen to the other version of events, which is the Chinese Communist Party has liberated Hong Kong for the betterment of Maoism, Marxism, the Communist Revolution, and the imperialist dogs of the West. You want to listen to that kind of shit? Go watch Jason Unruh. He's a cunt. He's the one who should be first on a boat and be sent over there. Because I'm sure he would say something, similar about me. Because he's a dirty little hypocrite is what he is. I haven't watched his videos for a long time. He's a cunt. Anyway, I'm going to finish up this video, but there will be more discussions, and try to take things into perspective, and definitely don't freak out or anything like that, because although this is a serious situation, if you have a cool head on your shoulders, you won't freak out until the point where you wouldn't be a human being unless you did freak out. And then hopefully it doesn't get to that, but everybody has a breaking point. And, when you have an army move in and start accusing you of things that you didn't do, that maybe your predecessors did, then, you're in kind of a bind, and it's not a good thing. Anyway, talk to people later. Have a good one.